The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I would ask Dr. Wagner to please read the mission statement.
Thank you. We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world.
Thank you, Dr. Wagner. The board will now hear comments from members of the public. This is an opportunity for members of the public to share information with the Board of Education. Prior to starting your comments, please provide your name, address, and any other contact information. As a reminder, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. This evening, we have a timekeeper to help our speakers keep track of their time, and Lori will be holding up cards to help you with that. As I routinely state before our open forums, Wisconsin Open Meetings Law prohibits the board from discussing matters brought during the public participation period of the meeting agenda that are not noticed on the board's agenda. If your comments raise a subject that does appear on tonight's agenda, the board may comment or discuss upon the subject, including asking you questions regarding your comments. However, no formal action would be taken on your comments, and the board may request a member of the administration to be in contact with you or to follow up on behalf of the board. If you are here to comment about matters that are not on tonight's agenda, someone from administration will contact you on behalf of the board if the board would want any additional or clarifying information from you. We have 2 people who have filled out forms that would like to comment tonight. If there are others, please hand the sheet to Sandy Heller, and she'll get them to me. So at this point, I will call up people in the order in which I received them. First is Amanda Van Remordel.
Good evening. My name is Amanda Van Remordel. My address is 3108 Summer Place, Green Bay 54313. I am a music teacher at Howe Elementary School, speaking tonight, though, on behalf of Green Bay Education Association. I am a 16-year teacher in the district. In my first 10 years, I have taught at 12 different elementary schools. I have spent the last 6 years at Howe. I am passionate about Green Bay Public Schools, the students and the families we serve, and the staff members. I am inspired daily by the students I teach. I am inspired daily by the outstanding educators who work in Green Bay Public Schools. I am also inspired daily by the successes of the district, in some cases against all odds. As I start my 3rd day on the job as president of Green Bay Education Association, I sit before you not only to introduce myself, but also to share the commitment of over 1,300 local teachers to advancing solutions for positive change on any issue that confronts our district. Most recently, that being of school climate and its impact on students and teachers, which is on the forefront of our minds. Green Bay teachers, through our association, are committed with our partnership with district leadership to make every school in the district a place that students and staff feel safe and respected. Our association is committed to working within the community so that our teachers have the tools needed to serve our students in every possible way. There is no time to lose, though. We must build restorative practices in all buildings, and I am confident that working together, we will move the school district forward for a place that our students, families, and teachers feel that they are academically successful, but also have healthy and inspiring school experiences that families want their students and educators want to teach in. I invite the entire community to join Green Bay Education Association and the hundreds of other community supporters for safe and welcoming schools to engage together on this and every other countless and essential initiative on behalf of our students. I also want to thank the school board for listening tonight, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you for your comments. Next is Scott Williams.
Thank you. My name is Scott Williams. I live at 2454 Clearbrook Circle. That's in the village of Howard. I bring you greetings from the Howard-Suamico School District. I've never had any children in the Green Bay School District. I did not attend Green Bay schools myself, and I obviously do not live in the Green Bay School District. I'm here as a neighbor, as someone who supports our public schools, and as someone who recognizes that all of Brown County depends on the success of the Green Bay School District. I have a lot of respect for all the people in this room, not only the board members and the administrators, but also the teachers, the parents, the taxpayers, support staff, and the students. Many of you have been in the trenches here for years to build this school district and to keep it moving forward. All of you are part of this school district, and all of you should feel proud of what this district has achieved over the years. That's how we do it in Howard-Suamico too. We support our public schools. We work hard, we pay our taxes, and we stick together. We cheer when the Bayport Pirates win, and we agonize when the Pirates lose or when the school district is having trouble. We're having a bit of trouble right now in Howard-Suamico after a group of naysayers used dirty politics to sabotage our April referendum, making our financial problems even worse. I congratulate you for passing a referendum here in Green Bay. I hope it helps. It's a shame, isn't it, that public education has been forced into survival mode this way, always working to manage the next budget deficit instead of working to educate our kids, expand services, and build our communities. The past 6 years have been brutal, to say the least. By some estimates, politicians in Madison have slashed $2.6 billion from public schools. The people in this room know all too well what it has meant to see your state government turn against the Green Bay School District and strip the district of vital resources, sending your taxpayer dollars across town to private schools and then criticizing you for the inevitable decline in quality that followed. After reducing some public schools to chaos, these politicians crow about how chaotic public schools have become and how the only solution is to take away even more funding. Which gives me great concern when I see people in the Green Bay School District responding to this dire situation created in Madison by attacking one another here at home, or by lashing out at their teachers and administrators for not having the resources to maintain the quality of schools that we all want. This misplaced outrage is short-sighted and counterproductive. Instead of attacking the real problem, it is so much easier to point fingers, isn't it? At whatever administrators, school board members are close by. Well, the politicians in Madison are giddy to see this circular firing squad we have formed here in Green Bay because it feeds right into their narrative of how bad public schools are. I'm sure they are celebrating right now that people in Green Bay are circulating a petition to fire the school superintendent. That'll turn up on bulletin boards all around the state capitol, and it'll become the next good excuse to cut funding for public schools even more and make the situation worse at Washington Middle School and all our other schools. Dr. Langenfeld and board members, for the efforts you have made in the past 6 years to keep this school district functioning despite the crippling budget cuts in Madison, you have my respect and my gratitude. And moving forward, as we work to save public education and restore public education in Green Bay and throughout the rest of Brown County, Dr. Langenfeld, This Bayport Pirate is proud to be on your team. Thank you.
Next is Larissa Butters.
Hello, I am Larissa Butters, and I live at 710 Stewart Street in Green Bay. I have some suggestions for the school board of what could be done to help Washington be successful in this next year. We know that adding an administrator and a counselor to the school is not enough. The school board has also talked about adding additional training supports for their teaching staff. You already have the best teaching staff possible at Washington. Adding more training would help, but they need more support from you. I'm advocating for the best possible school for the students in our area. We would like to see, and what other educators in our neighborhood have suggested, is an end to the push-in program. We need to move the students who disrupt the classroom and have emotional behavioral disorders and learning difficulties to a better environment for them. This might be studying as individuals at home on laptops. This might be studying in a small group, and this might be studying in a large group. This would allow the students to have individualized instruction and acclimate them back to the regular classroom so that they would progress by behavior and academic achievement. This would divide Washington into two schools, and that's okay. This is what Washington needs right now. We need it into two schools because there are students who want to learn there. They want to be successful. They want to do great things. And by dividing into two schools, I say you reward the students that want to be successful by helping them to get involved in the community. Let them go down to the farmery and plant plants. Let them go down to the YWCA and volunteer with the daycare. Let them go to the library to check out books. Let them do fun things. But they cannot do that if there's disruption in the classroom that has hindered the teachers from teaching in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh. Yeah. If you would like, you can provide, if you have your statements written, you can provide them to Sandy, and she'll get a copy of them to us after our meeting. I have no...
Judge if there are spelling errors.
It's okay, I crossed them out.
All right.
And then any of the other two speakers too, if you want to, if you would like to share your comments, you don't have to, but it's just another way of making sure that we have those. At this point, I have no other forms filled out. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before the board? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our board meeting. As you see, we do have I know many of you are here for the Washington Middle School and in support of Washington Middle School. And as you see, we do have an agenda item that we'll get to very shortly. Next is roll call. Sandy?
Becker?
Here.
George?
Here.
Dan?
Excused?
Here.
Here.
Wagner?
Here.
Warren?
Here.
Sinclair? Here.
We have 6 board members present. 1 is excused. We're joined at the table to my left, Dr. Michelle Langenfeld, our superintendent. At the far end is Grace Sinclair. She's president of our Intercity Student Council, and she's a senior at Preble High School. And at the my far left is Sandy Heller, our board secretary. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the following minutes. Regular board meeting, June 19th, 2017. Special board meetings, June 29th and July 10th, 2017. Special board meetings, closed sessions, June 19th, June 29th, July 10th, 2017.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been approved. Next is our, we have no communications to be placed on file, and next is our superintendent's update. I'll turn that over to Dr. Langenfeld.
Well, good evening, everyone. Before I make some comments, I do want to give the calendar. I usually start with the calendar. So, sorry.
Is your mic on?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear me?
No. it's
Can you hear me? I'm getting thumbs up. Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Before I make some comments regarding Washington, I do have to share the calendar as part of my report, so I'll start with that. On August 2nd, we have a special board meeting beginning at 4 o'clock. And then we have on August 7th is our teaching and learning work session right here in the boardroom at 5:30, immediately followed by the organizational support work session. August 21st is our regular board meeting, and then on August 23rd, we have another special board meeting. I think that's our data retreat, if I'm not mistaken, with the board. On September 5th, we welcome back the students, the 21,000 students who join us each and every year, and I think that's a really nice segue into our conversation here about how we are going to ensure that every staff member, every student, every family, every community member who comes through our doors has the confidence that they are entering a safe and welcoming learning environment. And so tonight I want to make it very clear that people have a very clear understanding of where we've been and where we're going. So I'm going to invite some folks to the table to talk, but before I do that, I want to begin by thanking you and being for those who have come forward and shared your experiences. Thank you for your courage and your willingness to talk about your own personal experiences and ongoing concerns. You know, I think that one of the things that I have shared, and I'll share it with you again, is that this experience has really afforded me the opportunity to reset, restart, and reflect. I can't tell you how many hours I've thought about the importance of really attending to the social and emotional well-being of staff and students and families across the district. I have personally apologized to Kirsten and to the staff at Washington that was a piece that had not been well cared for. And I think that moving forward, one of the critical pieces is to really start to understand why people don't feel safe even coming forward and sharing their experiences and truth. This is an opportunity for us to reset. This is an opportunity to look and say, this isn't working swell. We need to move forward in a different way. I've learned a lot from this opportunity and misfortune that's regarding suspensions. There's a lot of misinformation out there, too, that I'm learning, that people have different ideas about what we can and can't do as a staff and as a community. I've learned that we need to look deeper into our policies and practices and make sure that they support the work that's going on in our classrooms. And again, as I noted earlier, and I'll say it again, I've become painfully aware of the importance of ongoing regular check-ins to make sure that everyone is feeling supported and safe in the work environment. I want to congratulate the National Education Association and President Amanda Vandermortel. One of the things that the NEA has done this year is really, and it came after the first of the year, really engaged in the important conversation around safe schools and climate to support learning. And we certainly want to work further together on that because we feel safety certainly is a number one priority for each and every one of us to make sure that everyone feels that way. And I know that President Vandermortel and I and Mr. Harswick, come on, Michelle, we're going to meet, I think tomorrow, as early as tomorrow, to start talking about how we move that forward. Tonight, you're going to learn about our continued steps that we've been taking, and more importantly, we'll be doing some things a little bit differently. These opportunities cause us to look backward and forward, and one of the things you may or may not be aware of is during the course of the school year, we set aside $2 million when we begin the school year to knowing that we're going to need more resources as we support the individual needs of each and every student and staff member we serve. But what we're doing this year is a little different because that certainly hasn't worked as well as we would have liked. We're going to start, and we're already investing additional resources and supports. I think we're pushing close to $1 million that we wouldn't have staffed till we got into the school year, trying to take a very proactive stance. We will be, and you'll hear about how we're expanding our work with our community partners. But I think that the piece that was brought up by Ms. Butters earlier is around structures and really having each individual school identify the unique structures from within, whether it be scheduling things, whether it be lunchroom and so on, and look at what those structures look like that have been barriers to students and to the best working and learning environment that can take place. So we will be working and expect that along with the board, taking a very active role to ensure that you have the very best, and our community has students and staff have the very best environments possible for student learning and student achievement. And the way we'll do that, and you have my assurance, is that we will be doing regular check-ins, and I will be part of that. I believe the board will be as well. Not waiting until we have the end-of-the-year school perception survey, but really getting out there on a very, very regular basis in partnership with GBEA and others to make sure that people have what they need to be successful. So without any more, I'm going to invite the team to the table. We have John Magus, Associate Superintendent for Continuous Improvement, and Vicki Beyer, who is serving on point as the Chief for Pupil Services and Special Education, to talk more about the work we're doing. And I don't know if the principal from Washington will be joining us. I believe so, because he's part of this plan just for Washington. Some of the things you'll hear will actually impact the district. We're doing things district-wide as well. So even if you aren't a Washington teacher or staff member, there are things that will impact you as well. So thank you.
Thanks for having us, and I just wanted to say thanks as well for the comments, making sure that we're all considering how we can work on moving forward as a team, moving forward with the WGBA is really important. Thinking about how we can work moving forward as a community is incredibly important, and knowing that we all share the same goal as far as making sure that we have the greatest degree of student safety and academic achievement is important to all of us. This is something that I feel incredibly passionate about. I was a teacher and an administrator in schools that had some challenges, and it's important to me to serve you in the best degree that I can. It's important for me to serve the students of Washington, the staff of Washington, the administration, and the community as a whole. So we appreciate you having us and allowing us to speak. Last week, Principal Dennis Christensen and Executive Director Tom Ho came forward to share our plan for addressing concerns that had been raised regarding safety at Washington Middle School. And I want to reemphasize and ensure people that staff and student safety is the district's highest priority. That's why we have school crisis plans, why we have ALICE training, why we conduct safety drills, and why each school is assigned and served by a school resource officer. Safety is our first priority. As we've looked to identify problems and solutions to address staff member concerns about Washington, our understanding is that feelings of being unsafe were related to inconsistent behavior expectations and sometimes unpredictable responses to discipline, but also to a lack of number of staff members. We didn't have enough staff to respond to the teacher needs and the student needs that were there at the time. As we shared last Monday, our plan moving forward is to provide resources needed to address our student behavior concerns. Sure.
Sure.
Sorry, Cameron.
TV camera. That's not the TV camera.
Okay, come on up here. Come on up here.
Take our seat so that you're on the TV camera.
And they can see you talk.
Not to make you nervous or anything.
Just have a
Feng Shui. Feng Shui.
But bring your chairs.
my chair up. You can have my chair. I know they're all
No problem.
messed up
You
now.
guys are our customers.
Sorry
You are
to
our
do this to you, but-
staff, our customers, our community. We're here serving you.
The media guys will adjust.
You didn't get pleasure out of that, did you? All right.
So thanks again for having us, and Vicki Beyer, our Chief of Student Services, will address us as well now.
Thank you. We're going to begin by addressing the issues that have been identified as the problems. Issue number one, inconsistent student behavior expectations. For the last 3 years, the district has been working on a framework regarding behavior education, intervention, and discipline expectations. This work, which I'll pass out to the board, members of the audience, this morning, Megan, our executive secretary up in Pupil Services, put these documents on the intranet website, so you can access those just by going to the Pupil Services. This work began under the leadership of then District Equity Coordinator, Ms. Jennifer Higgs, and Executive Director of Pupil Services, Barbara Dorff. Jennifer and Barb led a team made up of administrators, board members, teachers, community members, and parents. After their departure, the torch was carried on by members of the Pupil Services team who are joining us here tonight. And I'm so grateful they have a wonderful audience to see them. Team, could you please stand? Katie DeVillers, Jackie Hafes, Tony Babe, Dana Hansen, Angela Buckenauer, and Sandy Beyer. Thank you, team. When you get a chance to go look at these 3 documents, they deserve the majority of the credit for this work. The work has been shared with administrators through professional development throughout this past year. It was an effort to try to see where the kinks might be and how we can improve upon what the task force had provided us initially. This work is being rolled out to all district staff this August. Again, we're very grateful for the audience to be able to share this. It's modeled after the Wisconsin RTI Center's behavior framework and is aligned with our district comprehensive MLSS framework, which board was presented to you in May. This model provides consistent expectations and predictable consequences. This will have impact across the district and should eliminate uncertainty staff feel around the district's expectations for student behaviors and how inappropriate behaviors are expected to be addressed at the building level. Board members, you will be receiving a full presentation, I believe, August 7th. So those in the audience that are interested and want to get a preview, please join us that day as well. In addition, this spring, when district leaders met with Washington staff, they identified some primary areas of concern. The school plan is being developed through teacher meetings this summer, which will identify student expectations and what are the predictable responses to those behaviors. Areas of concern shared by the staff included students arriving late for school, student cell phone usage during the school day. I heard somebody agree with that. Hallway behaviors, cafeteria behaviors, student use of profanity, ensuring that consequences for behaviors are meaningful, and the number of behavioral referrals overall. At Washington and across the district, school behavior safety teams will measure fidelity of implementation of this guide, focusing on suspension, detention, and expulsions. Issue 2, appropriate staff training regarding student behaviors. Increase professional development for certified and non-certified staff based on individual school needs. I was going to ask Angela, would you mind please just joining us for a moment? Angela's led the charge And I know this is off script, but I thought it was important to identify some of the interventions or trainings that we're able to provide and what we've done this year.
She gave me just enough notice to have my little cheat sheet. So through a grant that we received from the federal government 2 years ago, we were able to provide some training to our schools looking at behavior interventions. So this year, the grant that we received was the Elementary School Counselor Grant from the federal government. So our trainings were initially focused at the elementary level. So this year we were able to provide 2 trainings. The first one was a behavior interventions training, which was a 4-day training that focused on 9 universal interventions as well as 18 tier 2 interventions, and helping our schools and staff understand how we can better support students in our classrooms and as a system. We had over 26 schools attend that training along with district staff for a total of about 98 attendees. The schools that attended were able to develop a 3 to 5 year plan for implementation. You can't implement all 22 interventions at once. Our staff would go nuts. So they do have a 3 to 5 year plan on how to build the system to better support students and staff in understanding how to adequately provide interventions for students who need it. We also had another training this summer in June where 21 schools were able to attend, focusing on the behavior RTI system. So really looking at it as a model of how do we put a system into our schools and looking at it as universal tier 2 as well as tier 3 and provide the supports that our students need at all of those levels. Again, we had 21 schools attend with their teams, so administrators as well as teacher teams attended both of those trainings. At the end of that RTI training, we had a 4-hour training specifically focused for our leaders of the buildings, focused on behavior leadership and how do they lead their schools to manage behavior and to fully implement and support their staff and helping students be successful in their schools. So we have 1 more year of grant money left. Fortunately for us, one of our contracted services has fallen through, which provides us additional money to be looking at trainings for the remaining schools that in our district and looking at how do we best serve our staff and our students with the available money. So that has not yet been decided. We've been speaking with Mr. Magus and Mr. Ho as well as Ms. Beyer and the superintendent to decide what would be the best use of the money that we now have available. But knowing that this is an important piece for our staff and our leaders, so we are looking forward to seeing how we can help all schools be able to implement the plans in 3 to 5 years.
That was really good, thank you. In addition to the interventions trainings, thank you, Angela, crisis team response training, de-escalation, which I think most in the audience are familiar with, nonviolent crisis interventions, so we would continue that work as well, focusing on the de-escalation point. This training will be provided district-wide, so not just a Washington focus, although we recognize that there's a need there as well.
And I think when it comes to training, there was somebody who, in a comment, who had mentioned that, saying that training meant that we didn't feel that staff was good or didn't have the skills needed. And I just want to reiterate that that's not the case at all. We have a great staff. We have a great team. And really it's about how can we constantly be reflecting and improving given the changing needs of students that we have on a regular basis. We look at what can we do to improve on a regular basis, and I think that that's really one of the things that makes Washington and really the whole staff of Green Bay Area Public Schools great, is that we're continually reflecting on how can we better serve kids, especially as their needs may be changing. So the third issue that we identified was improved student, staff, and parent communication. We want to make sure that that communication is as clear as possible. Setting behavior expectations at the beginning of the year is really, really critical to make sure that those are as clear as possible for our students and our parents. And also making sure that students and parents alike, as well as staff, understand what the consequences will be if there is a behavior infraction or if there is inappropriate behavior. That is incredibly important for us. So the district will be working with Washington and with other schools to make sure that that is as clear as possible and that it's a very intentional approach to communicating these pieces. Additionally, the plan will address a more comprehensive approach to communication in general with staff to make sure that staff and parents are best informed. Issue number 4 that we mentioned was the need for additional staff needed to address the student concerns and student needs that are in place at Washington related to behavior and throughout the district. because this is not just a Washington issue, it's not just a Green Bay issue, it's an issue that's faced by all schools as far as the needs go and being able to address those needs. One thing that we did that we felt was very important was hiring an additional associate principal, and we'll be hearing more about that later in the board meeting. Allowing for there to be an associate principal on each floor of the building so that student response time to student behavior was cut to a minimum, and that teachers would have a quick response to behavioral issues that might occur. That person will also be working with a student monitor so that there will be a team of the monitor and the associate principal on each floor of the building to address concerns as they rise immediately. Additionally, we provided an additional student counselor, school counselor, who will be providing support to the students in making sure that they are building their skills in areas that they need to focus on, and as well as working with staff on restorative practices that we heard about from the association. Staff will be provided additional monitoring hours to make sure that monitoring time is increased, to make sure that our common areas are highly monitored, and that student behavior is addressed very quickly. I also want to say that we're expanding our partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and looking to expand that partnership to allow for an additional mentoring program that we would have not only at Washington, but we're looking at a possibility of other middle schools in the district as well, allowing for community members and older students to come in and work on explicit monitoring of, mentoring of our students. That's an important piece that we recognize. I think it's also important to recognize the huge outpouring of community support that we had as far as people wanting to sign up and help the district and help the schools and help Washington. We had over 50 people and organizations call volunteering, wanting to assist. So all of those resources will be things that we're putting in place.
Which brings us to issue 5, and I don't think this will be a surprise to any of the teachers in the audience today. Increased and complex student needs, behavioral, academic, and emotional, including mental health issues. It's changed a lot, hasn't it? This is I'm going into 30th year in public education, and so those of you in the audience that have been around as long as I have recognize that things have changed and we have to make adjustments accordingly. We need to develop stronger community organizational supports. We've modeled a mental health program at Minoka Hill where we partnered with Bellin to provide psychiatric services. Thanks to Angela and her team's work, we're able to expand that into some of our schools this school year with the hopes of being able to provide it eventually to everyone. What that means is there would be mental health providers within the schools to help support those students that are the neediest. As John mentioned, the community support superintendent a few weeks ago set a call for action, and people responded. The community responded. As a result, we are going to gather those supporters and anyone else interested in helping volunteer and as community members try to attack this complex problem. There will be a community meeting on August 3rd. It will be at district office here on first floor in room 138A and B, August 3rd from 6 to 8 p.m. I will be facilitating that meeting along with Kim Shannock. If you have any questions about it prior to, please reach out to me and I'll try to answer those. We're also, as John mentioned, looking to develop mentoring programs with the police department, Big Blues. We're exploring a teen court option as well. Continued identification and implementation of structures needed to best meet individual student and staff needs in a school setting. For example, as John had mentioned, adding another AP aligned specifically to a grade level. So each grade level will have an AP housed with a monitor on every floor in the building. And then we'll continue our work with district school support teams. This was an initiative that started this past school year, and we hope to continue to expand and grow.
So we have a plan. The plan is clear. It's a plan that we've had in place, but we've also worked to improve it in the past weeks. Much of our effort, large part of the work that we've been doing for the past month and a half, 2 months, has been focused largely on Washington, but also knowing that the needs of Washington are representative needs throughout the district and throughout many schools in our country. We want to address this the best way possible. Having a plan is one thing, but holding ourselves accountable and making sure that we're measuring that plan as time goes on is even more critical. We recognize that communicating on a regular basis with staff, students, parents, and the community at large will be very important to the implementation of this plan. In addition, we must have a way to make sure that you know that we're holding ourselves accountable for the things that we put in place and that we've mentioned here. We must have understandable measures so that we can see when there's an uptick in behavior or when there's an issue related to safety that needs to be addressed at a particular site. Those are things that we have had to a degree, but they obviously need greater refinement, and this is what we have moving forward. The following will apply to Washington and all schools in the district. Monthly reports on the implementation of the behavior education, intervention, and discipline expectations. In addition to the school perceptions, culture, and climate survey that we do each year, we will be conducting quarterly measures of school culture and climate. The superintendent will be following up with staff regarding this perception survey, as well as the regular check-ins to understand and gain a deeper understanding of the concerns identified during this time. And finally, we will have measurements to demonstrate the fidelity of implementation and consistency of the district behavior expectations and consequences. This is what we're holding ourselves accountable for and what we will make sure that we are reporting back on a regular basis. Our work continues, though. In addition to the work that has been done to date, we also believe it's important for parents and family members to have a voice in the plan for the next year. So we have some opportunities set up that Mr. Christensen will report on as well. We also have additional opportunities for staff that he'll be discussing as well. In conclusion, however, I want to reiterate that throughout the past year, Washington has had a school success plan, but we are working diligently to provide any supports needed to make sure that that plan can be as successful as possible in the coming year. We realize that this won't be an immediate change or a flip of a switch. It's going to require a lot of hard work, and as we heard from the community at the beginning, it's going to take the part of the whole community working as a team. And we appreciate that we're able to move forward after we've examined the problem deeply and begin our work deeply working on the solutions. And here to talk more about the solutions is Mr. Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Megas. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Langenfeld, members of the school board, and community representatives with us today. I am Washington Middle School Principal Dennis Christensen. Last week, I had the opportunity to share with you a review of Washington Middle School's engagement, behavior, and safety activities currently ongoing that are supportive of student and staff safety and ongoing school improvement. Tonight, I'm here to brief you on an update related to that summer work. In addition to staffing and hiring, building of the 2017-18 master schedule, and summer school administration, Washington Middle School staff have been actively working on the following activities supportive of the 2017-18 school plan. As Mr. Megas pointed out, with an emphasis on ongoing communication and community engagement, Washington Middle School will be hosting 3 opportunities for parents to add their voice to our planning for a successful 2017-2018 school year. On Monday, July 24th, there will be 3 opportunities for parents. You will be invited to attend one of these 3 sessions to share your voice. Session 1 from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., Session 2 from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m., and Session 3 from 6 p.m. till 7 p.m. at Washington Middle School. This information was communicated out to families via email and automated phone call on Friday, July 14th. Furthermore, supportive of the staff engagement, Washington Middle School will invite staff for 2 summer staff meetings. At these meetings, administration will share progress and updates on the 2017 and 18 Washington Middle School plan. This will also be an opportunity for staff to provide input so that as the work continues and is refined, that work in August, that input of staff can be included in that work. The dates of these meetings are as follows: July 24th, 8:30 to 10 o'clock a.m., and August 24th from 8:30 to 10 a.m. I am pleased that tonight the school board will consider approval of the administrative appointment of Molly O'Neill to the Washington Middle School administrative team, joining Mr. Ware, Mr. Meinl, Ms. Jakowski, and myself. I'm appreciative of this considered appointment because Ms. O'Neill will bring along extensive background and experience in school culture building, restorative practices, and discipline in the secondary schools to Washington Middle School. She brings a lot of skills to the table. The Washington Middle School leadership team, who is really responsible for helping and leading that school-wide PBIS, the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, has been meeting regularly over the course of this summer, and they are working on those key action items for 2017-18. In fact, this team will be meeting again tomorrow at Washington Middle School to continue that work. Their summer work includes some of the following: development of positive building-wide messaging, including posters and banners, as well as other building-wide methods to convey that culture of building of academic excellence and behavioral expectations. Proactive welcoming communications to all of our new incoming 6th grade students via postcard. September 5th, our students are coming. This team is working on a comprehensive first week of school activities calendar, and it's near completion and includes school-wide behavioral expectations and procedures, positive behavioral incentives, and team building activities supportive of building that school induction and relationship building necessary for a successful culture in a building. A revamped cafeteria plan has been developed collaboratively by the Universal Leadership Team, building and administration, teachers, and monitors, and with the consultation of representatives from the district office building team that works on behavior that was highlighted earlier today. We're also working on building on the success of the end-of-the-year hallway monitoring, tardy procedures, and hallway sweeps. The administration team has been refining these and looks for a fall implementation. Likewise, we continue work on refining that appropriate use of cell phones in the building. We will continue our outreach to Washington families in August when we will host our fall registration and open houses. The dates are Tuesday, August 22nd, 8:30 to 10 a.m. And I may have to check that tape. I may have a typo, but Thursday, August 24th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. and Tuesday, August 29th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I apologize, that 22nd date is again from 2 to 6 p.m. I finished my statement last week saying we have much work to do, and we will continue that work. We will continue that work and communicate it and collaboratively. I want to close my updates with just a few acknowledgments. First, the Washington staff members who continue to step up and to share their talents and expertise supportive of the success of Washington students as we look forward to that 2017-18 school year. To the district office personnel and school board who support our daily activities and vision for improvement. And lastly, for the many students, families, and the community partners, many of whom are here today, who have and continue to reach out in support of Washington Middle School and our ultimate success. So I thank you.
Dennis, would you give those dates again, please, for the registration?
Tuesday, August 22nd from 2 to 6 p.m. Thursday, August 24th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Tuesday, August 29th, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m.
And we'll post all of those as well, so that the public may not, have caught them right now. So we get everything out there. Obviously, information will be going to the families directly and the staff,
yes.
but others can certainly, welcome to attend, and there will be obviously the community meeting on August 3rd as well here at the district office. So we'll get that forward as well.
So we appreciate so many people coming forward, and we are learning, as most school districts are, that the tools and methods that we once relied on to address student needs are no longer sufficient on their own. As we work to educate all students, it takes additional resources, community support, and greater dexterity to respond to quickly changing circumstances. We appreciate the focus on the issues that have been coming up at Washington, as well as your continued support as we work towards collective solution as a team. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the musical chairs. As we move forward, I just wanted to once again reiterate our commitment to ensuring that every student, every staff member, every community member, every parent who comes through our schools has a safe and orderly environment to lead to student success. I think that the other piece I would offer is a note of gratitude. We can do better. As I've said, we've been doing a lot of work, but it has not been enough. I don't know if Kirsten is still here. She has afforded me deep insight into things. If there are others out there who have listened to this plan, as you move forward, I invite you and ask that you provide your input, your insight to me or to someone, because this is how we're learning forward. Again, I want to express the gratitude to each of you. The work that you do is extraordinary. You change lives and impact lives every single day, and we sincerely appreciate that. Our commitment to you is to help move forward and to listen and to gather information. I think we'll post the accountability that I know Mr. Magus spoke about. This is about accountability to each and every one of the students we serve, to each and every one of you, to each and every parent, and to each and every one in our community who supports our schools as taxpayers. We owe that to you. I personally feel responsible, and it has been a learning curve that is probably much greater than anyone had anticipated, but we are grateful to have had the opportunity to hit this reset button. And I think collectively moving forward, and I know, collectively moving forward with the shared commitment. It is everybody pulling in the same direction, wanting what's very best for each and every child being served. And I believe we have extraordinarily awesome things happening already, but doing that collectively together, committed to moving forward, is exactly where we need to see things when we open the doors in just a very short period of time. So I thank you, and I don't know, board members, if you have questions or if you'd like me to go on to the next item.
Anybody have any questions, Andrew?
Or even comments.
Can you hear me out there? Okay. Is this the August 7th meeting, is that where we're going over this packet that's currently in draft form?
I believe that's the presentation. Oh, good, they're back.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Did you guys know that?
I think as long as I know that that's coming up in the near future and weeks before school starts, I heard some things about restorative practices, and there's a place for those. Mm-hmm. But we shared a lot of things in this short time frame we were sharing with the public. A lot of technical material that we did through RTI, level 2, level 3. What the public, and in my context I've had demands, rightfully so, is safety. And when the time comes and when we have this more detailed discussion on August 7th, I expect to see in the materials that safety might be redirection and reteaching and setting an environment. Mm-hmm. But safety also needs to mean using everything at our disposal, that if someone is hurting someone, that they're going to get into a better placement, and they're not going to be where people are getting hurt. And whatever there is, and I know that there's a tendency to, there may be camps of, let's do, restorative justice, that's the answer to everything, and there's going to be, drop the hammer, everything's a suspension. There needs to be some work together to find a middle ground. There are times that one way is appropriate, and there's times that the safety needs to come first. So I look forward to that detailed discussion on August 7th, and really getting some guidance as to, and giving some guidance as to where we feel, what do we feel can be handled in the classroom, and what's going farther. What's what's an emergency? What's hopefully we don't need any, but what's a straight to 911? And knowing these kinds of things. So I look forward to that. I look forward to that on August 7th, and I look forward to our sharing soon after August 7th with the public where we're going with some of the specifics.
Ed?
As long as we have this opportunity, Vicki, would you explain restorative justice, what it is, where it's appropriate, where it's not appropriate? It's something that we've been hearing a lot about, and I'm not sure that I have a clear understanding of it, and I know that I've received a lot of questions about it, so if you wouldn't mind, please.
Yes, and Mr. Becker is correct. As you just said, too, it's not appropriate in every instance. But if restorative practices are used appropriately under the circumstances where an administrator and perhaps student services staff or the teacher would feel it would be appropriate, it's giving the offender an opportunity to truly understand the impact of their behavior and what it did to the teacher or other student, whoever the victim might have been. Again, not always appropriate to use it. It takes time, and that's where if we had more administrative staff, I could see it utilized more. It takes some time, and we don't always see corrected behaviors immediately. But if utilized appropriately, studies do show that it reduces reoffenses.
I don't mean to be putting you on the spot here, but what is it? What does it look like? What are the elements?
Tell me when to stop if I'm getting too detailed. Both parties have to agree to participate in the practice to begin with, so the victim and the offender. They're met with individually by, typically in our district, we have the school social workers. They go through a series of questions, and then they're brought together, and the social worker will facilitate a conversation, helping the person that was the offender get a deeper understanding through the questioning of how it made that victim feel.
So this is something that's primarily used then with student-to-student problems? Is that what I'm hearing?
Student to student, student to teacher.
Okay.
We have a .1 restorative practice coordinator in our school district, Heather Strayer. Katie Liddicoat at Washington is also trained in restorative practices. We've utilized Heather's experience throughout the district to facilitate. We've even had parents sit in on some of the restorative pieces so that the parents, as we all know, and the folks behind me know very well, oftentimes community issues spill into our schools, and Heather has facilitated different circles, we call it, with parents and students to help come to conclusion.
Do we have any sense for the effectiveness of these practices as far as repeat offenders, that sort of thing?
I haven't looked at the data from Heather, but she does provide Angela or Tony with regular updates on how often she's being utilized. Did I just put Angela on the spot again?
Yeah, she just raised her hand, so.
Yeah. Feedback has been very good. I haven't looked at specific data to see if the students continue to reoffend, but I can speak to, Heather just shared with me a month ago that she had some parents come in because there was an incident in the community, and she facilitated that restorative practice with the families, and having the parents together and realize that the stories they were hearing from their youngsters were not accurate helped those families move forward. So the direct result we would expect is that those students aren't misbehaving in the school anymore because now the parents have a better and clear understanding of what was going on.
One more question, and are there any particular behaviors, and you can align it to specific policies if you like, for which these restorative practices just absolutely are not appropriate?
I wouldn't recommend it if somebody were seriously injured. And going along with district policy, we would look for a different placement in those cases. When a student, if I could add to that, sir, in some cases when we have disciplinary hearings or expulsion hearings and a student does return, we can offer if the teacher wants a restorative piece, but in most cases, we wouldn't move that direction.
That would be in addition to
Yes, sir.
other kind of.
And then it's my understanding, because I asked this before because someone had asked me, that restorative practice is not necessarily the only thing we would do in a particular situation. So that is in addition to other discipline consequences, those kinds of things.
Yes.
We've really discussed that in great detail, and really it's about having really high, clear, firm expectations for all students that are clearly understood, and then making sure that those are reinforced with consequences when needed, but then also we have supportive practices to make sure that students are learning from their mistakes, because really it's about changing the behavior. So it's the firm supportive consequences with expectations that are very clear, paired with that supportive practice that we would have in place.
Any other questions, Chris?
Yes, thank you. Comment, if I may. I certainly appreciate the superintendent administration presenting this plan. It certainly seems like a more than reasonable plan to address the issues at Washington and also work with our other schools in terms of behavior. From my standpoint, I have to expect that this plan will work, and if it doesn't, then we've got to make some adjustments, PDQ, because as we all know, we cannot have anything near what was presented to us at Washington to continue. So I appreciate your work, and again, I anticipate and expect positive results.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Thank you.
Wait, we're not done yet.
Yep.
Do you have another question, Andrew?
What are we doing, or what's in the works to ensure that people with, I'm thinking staff, but not necessarily only staff, people with concerns are comfortable going forward, whether that might be to their building level, or they might feel it's not being addressed there and they need to go up to a different level? How are we going to make sure that people feel comfortable doing that? Because we heard about some things much later than I wish we would have heard about them. So what are we doing about that?
We talked about the accountability piece of our climate and culture check, as well as a quarterly check-in that we'll be doing with people. But we really urge everyone who's a staff member or a parent, if you have concerns, that you come forward to your supervisor and discuss them as soon as possible. And from the top on down, there cannot be any form of retaliation for anything that's brought forward. It's paramount that we know what the clarity of the situation is, so that we can work to improve things. The sooner we know about a problem, the more we know about what the problem is, the sooner we can address it. And that's our mission, and we can't do anything but that. So if there are instances where that is taking place, that would be contrary to our thriving workforce goal. And our thriving workforce goal is one of our four most important goals. If we're deviating from that, it's taking away from the culture of the district, and we would make sure that that was addressed through human resources or through the supervisor.
If I could follow up, Mr. Becker, as well. One of the models that's out there is a pretty simple model that can be used at a staff meeting, and it basically is a Post-it note with three things that you write, what's working well, what's not, and it's done anonymously, and all that data can be collected and brought forward. I think that we are going to have to keep checking for quite a while, because I know out and about, as I've had conversations with people are concerned when they come forward with information. So I want to make sure that we start to shift that culture too. Just as we expect the student behavior to shift, we have to invest in provide avenues so that that culture shifts as well. We need to change that, because people have to be able to have their voice heard.
Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit about, we've talked a lot about what is expected of teachers, what's expected of administrators. What do you ask of parents? Because I would like to hear a little more about that.
And you will on August 7th.
It seems
That's
like we
great
ask
question.
teachers to work miracles on a daily basis and do the work of parents.
We will address that. That's actually part of the booklet.
Okay.
But I agree that some of the issues that we see in our schools are not just school issues, they're societal issues that need to have enforcement and support from the whole community. I think if there were one thing I would suggest as a former principal is to, at least as a parent, if there's an issue, a behavior issue that you have with your son or daughter, to assume positive intent, that the teacher or the administrator is working, trying to resolve the situation as fairly and openly as possible, and to come in and listen and try to work together to find a common solution that rectifies the situation and teaches the student that whatever behavior took place is not acceptable, and how can they move forward from that.
Excuse me, Katie.
We have a room full of teachers, parents, former teachers, Barb Short, hello, and very interested and concerned community members. How should they direct their questions and comments both about tonight's presentation and what we're going to hear about on August 7th, just to kind of expedite the communication so we don't have to, where should those?
I'm sorry.
I'm wondering, Lori, if they can weigh in on just the district website, on the communications website. That might be the best, because
On the bottom of the homepage, there's a community forum link.
Yeah.
You'll just click on that and fill that out. And if people want to be contacted back, if they fill out their contact information, it's going to respond.
Could you hear that?
so on the community,
On the district homepage.
yep,
at
the
bottom
district
of the page,
homepage, the bottom of the
there's a
page,
Community forum link.
community forum link, and if you would put that, or if there's anybody you feel comfortable directly emailing. If it goes to the community link, it'll be archived with the rest of the information that's come forward as well, because it's coming through Lori's communications office, so.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you to everyone, and
Thanks
we
for
do
coming.
miracles every day, so thank you for that. Don't leave, I have a great announcement. Just as long as we have everyone here, you may or may not have heard the Green Bay Packers Foundation has awarded the district $250,000 to provide 13 of our schools with resources. And the goal is to really transform our library media centers into 21st century collaborative learning centers that'll have flexible seating and collaborative seating, active learning conferencing centers, and where families and staff and students will gather, in integrated technology and maker spaces. So the schools, and I know we have building principals here representing those schools, Aldo, Dans, Doty, East High School, Edison, Eisenhower, Howe, Keller, Lincoln, Red Smith, Sullivan, Washington, and Webster will be in the first round, and we hope to continue this. So I want to thank again the Packers and congratulate all of you. And I suggested to Mark Murphy that he should come and tour and bring his team when he comes to see it. So anyway, we would like to take a picture and send it off to the Green Bay Packers in gratitude. They've been great partners for us, and looking forward to these extraordinary places for our families and community and students and staff. So, yes, if I could have the principals come forward, and I know some of us have some green on as well, so come on up. Yeah, we should be in the picture. So.
Does anybody have any lipstick? No.
That is teamwork right there.
trying so hard. Let's see my I'm not going to see the Doty Keller twins. I put it up. I want to hold the check. Hey, you're scrolling fun.
Quick change. Quick change. I'll join you down there. Here we go.
Go right ahead. So Murphy knows us.
Sweet.
All right. Oh, good. This is great. We're facing this way.
So we were chosen by the faculty. Yes. We want them to share this with their staff and show them who's getting.
Yay, we're pretty excited. We are very excited. I'm with the tall ladies in the middle.
Cheese. Doing the work and saying who wants to present. Thank you.
All right, people. I don't know. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, isn't that awesome? Yes. So I have more announcements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Ed's digging in his purse. I am. Oh, okay. So I still have thank you to Andy Sarno before I finish my report.
Oh, okay. Then we'll continue on as soon as things quiet down a little bit. All right, go ahead.
I want to go on record and publicly thank our Chief Financial Officer, Andy Sarno, who is going to Minnesota to be a Vikings fan.
Uh-oh.
Andy has served with us very well for the last 2 years, and the contributions that Andy made, and when I think of Andy and the work that he did during the referendum, it was noteworthy. He was always in front and center with large crowds talking about the needs of the district, and he did a really wonderful job. And for that, I believe he played a very integral part in the success of the referendum. Andy has also helped us through some pretty difficult budgetary times as we look forward. And I think the gentleman earlier talking about the budget, the state of Wisconsin's budget has been very challenging for public education. And so that the work that Andy has had to do and lead us through has been not so easy. And some days I often wondered if we were getting to dog years. Every year served as 7 years. So I want to thank you, Andy, for your hard work. I think I speak for all of us that you will be missed. And again, we wish you very well. Minnesota's an okay state. I think you'll do okay there, but Wisconsin is a great place, and don't forget us here. So thank you so much, Andy. And I think
that concludes.
I think that's probably enough right now. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Langenfeld. Next is our monitoring reports, and this evening we have our district literacy progress monitoring report, so I'll call up that team.
Have to sit backwards.
Nobody's only moving forward. Moving forward, yes. Should we wait for Mr. Mays or just?
Goodness. I think we should move forward, and obviously, I think Michael can probably, or one of the two. Dr. Chartier.
You're looking for John's in here. Okay. We're ready for you.
We're ready for you.
Thanks again for the opportunity to speak for you tonight. In just a moment, we'll be summarizing data points and summary points from our literacy memo and the associated slides that are being shared with you and you've had a chance to review. This is the kind of third or the second follow-up to our presentation around academic behavior, multi-level systems of support, which we presented earlier this spring. As you might recall, last month we spoke with you about the state of mathematics in the district. Tonight we talk a little bit about the state of literacy. So Nancy Chartier will begin the presentation talking in introduction terms and in terms of elementary education, and then I'll talk about secondary. We're also joined tonight by Ms. Liz Armstrong and Ms. Jane Delcourt, and I don't want to mess up your titles, ladies, so I'll let you say them specifically if you don't mind.
So I coordinate literacy intervention for pre-K-12.
And I'm Liz Armstrong, and I'm actually the Reading Recovery and Descubriendo la Lectura teacher leader in the district.
Thank you, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk a little bit about our history of literacy, our current reality, and our next steps. If there are any questions that you might have, please don't hesitate to bring them forward. First of all, general education instruction.
I just wanted to say thanks to the board for having us come forward with this progress monitoring report. And sorry I was attending to people outside, but Mike and Nancy have done a tremendous job with leading our literacy efforts, but not without the support of a great team and great teachers. And I wanted to thank everybody.
And I would certainly do that, including one in the back that chose not to come forward, chose not to come forward, is Angie Lacombe, who is our elementary ELA curriculum coordinator, who was the champion in 2014-2015 of our English language arts content essential documents and continues to monitor that process as part of our jury process. The next piece is our literacy framework. The piece that makes literacy so complex is it truly is 3 content areas that teachers have to work through in unison in order to be successful. We have in our district the reading workshop, the writing workshop, and a language or word study component. And then under each one of those areas of reading workshop, writing workshop, or language word study, we also have components that make it up. And just a couple of those, not to belabor the point this evening, is for under a reading workshop, we'll have independent reading, shared reading, guided reading. Under the word study piece, phonemic awareness, spelling, interactive read aloud. Under our writers workshop, it's the writing process, so shared writing, interactive writing, independent writing. And I know that in the past we have come forward and asked for additional resources for components that fall underneath all of those workshops. A couple other pieces about our literacy workshop that I think are very important to bring forward are some of the changes that we've made. Over the past couple of years, 3 years to be exact, we have adopted and implemented reading units of study that are aligned with or in partner with our already existing writing units of study, and also the Words Their Way survey and materials that we use for a complete word study program. Another point that is valid in bringing forward that has, I believe, made a significant impact on the growth that we've made in the area of literacy is the fact that these resources provide for our teachers a scope and sequence. So by using them and teaching from them, it is a learning experience every day in which they are addressing students' needs. It's not our traditional textbook that we set aside and page by page we follow the book. It really does guide the teacher in supporting the student in the writing and the reading process. Also, it provides routine and rigor for our students and our teachers. We've had approximately 16 schools that have focused on our reading units of study this year, and 12 schools that have focused on our writing units of study, with word study and language being taught and focused every day. Now, when we say focused on, that does not dispel the fact that we teach reading, writing, and word study daily. It's just as part of our professional learning, the schools identify which area of literacy that they want to focus on, and then they go into a much deeper study based on what the teachers need and what the students' data is showing us. To that means we have in our schools, we're very fortunate to have elementary professional developers or literacy coaches. A little bit about our literacy coach and the work that they do. First of all, our literacy coaches in our schools provide multiple levels of professional learning for all staff and administrators. The coaches teach half day in a literacy block in one classroom. And the reason for this is that it gives them the opportunity to see students change over time. As they are working the work, they are then become a stronger thinking partner with the teachers that they're supporting because they are in the trenches working with the teacher. It also gives them the opportunity to coach a teacher through the learning process at the first of it, at the beginning, and then it also to build on their coaching repertoire or the art of coaching as they work in that observation classroom. The other piece that I think is critically important is the support of our building principals. A year ago, we had hosted a principal academy, our coaches did for our principals, and that was the very beginning of a journey as they presented and worked collaboratively with the building principals at the academy to carry with Ann Barsh's and Andrea Landwehr's support. We actually carried that monthly into our principal meetings, so 90 minutes a month, our literacy coaches would join our principals in learning and going more deeply around the three components of literacy. And to that means also the data that supported those. We are actually in our third year of, shall I say, I'm not quite sure how to put this, but not revising, but revisiting and revamping our literacy coaching model, and there have been significant changes to it. Two of the greatest pieces that we targeted as a team from day one was to really begin to create a culture for for coaching. And the second piece was the fact that our coaches are not the carrier of all the knowledge, that this is a shared learning experience between the teacher and the coach. So that in itself then leads us to talk a little bit about other components that are very important in the hours, as you can see, as far as the professional learning hours. The time that the coach would work with individual teachers in the classroom, they'll come in, they'll visit, or they might have a student that's struggling. Having their coach on site is real-time intervention and real-time support for our teachers. What they do is their professional learning, is they do use our student data, and they use teacher input to determine what they will be focusing on in their monthly literacy team meeting. Out of that team meeting then is co-constructed with the building principal and the literacy coach. Often it's facilitated by the literacy coach, but also it is not unusual to have the principal and the literacy coach co-facilitate that. On an average, the coach spends 33 hours a year in just the literacy professional development of monthly meetings and development of that professional development opportunity. Also, we have what are called our formal coaching cycles, our coaching, a formal coaching cycle where the teacher works with the coach around student data in an area that the teacher themselves have identified they would like more support in, or a struggling learner where they really would just like a thinking partner to be a part of. And in that coaching cycle, they meet first, go and review the data. The teacher teaches, the coach observes. And after the lesson, then the coach and the teacher have a post-conference in which they discuss what went well, what might be some strategies we may try in the future, and then monitor closely the student data. Our next steps for next year, if we come back here, there are about 30 hours of average cycle, or 48 hours of coaching cycles, and then the collaborative time for planning and analyzing data is separate than the coaching cycle, the professional development, and the fact they teach half-day in a classroom for the literacy block. Next year, I'm hoping that one piece you'll ask us to bring would be the increased hours of coaching cycles. This will help us to better measure our initial goal in creating a culture for coaching, and also for a real adoption of that invested learning, that it is a shared learning experience. And there is not one person that's more knowledgeable, that it is absolutely, they are a lead learner perhaps, but it is very much reciprocated between the learning between the coach and the teacher. Any questions on our coaching model to this point? Thank you. I alluded a little bit in our framework to the three major components of literacy, and for each of those components, for our reading, for our writing, and for our word study, we have adopted curriculum assessments. And this is our first year of gathering all three pieces of what we call a comprehensive learner of literacy. And this is what we have now, all of our staff, 3 times a year, enter this data into Infinite Campus. The data, as the data became entered and renewed, is actually the data that the building principal and the literacy coach in our 90-minute professional learning every month worked with under the director, under the leadership of Linda Teskey, our literacy coordinator, who I should have mentioned was unable to be here tonight because of illness. What is very important about these three pieces is in the past we looked at a grade level reading score. Many of you have heard ABCD is reference to where's the child at in their understanding of reading. The beautiful part in looking at the comprehensive pieces of data is that reading and writing are the reciprocity between the reading and writing process are so very close and give you so much information as to what your next strategic action in teaching might be. So now we have the benchmark assessment that we are reporting out, the BAS, in the spring, but we do collect writing records throughout the year. We have the 3 writing prompts that align with our resources that address the 3 areas of writing that are required under the Common Core state standards and also in our content essential documents. And we have a comprehensive scope and sequence way of teaching word study and the components that we would find under a language development and word study. And so what we have done this past year, and this is the next ask, would be the next bring that we bring you next year, is we look at the 3 components of literacy and how a student performs in each of those, and gives us an enormous amount of detail, many, many more questions that we'll be able to dive in here tonight. But what it really would do is we really want to know how many of our children are proficient in all 3 areas of literacy. And then we will know that we have those students leaving kindergarten, if they're proficient in the 3 areas of literacy, going into 1st grade, then they have a solid beginning for those foundations of learning literacy, and then into 1st grade, 2nd grade, and so on and so forth. I'd like just a couple points that I'd like to bring out here. Is that this is 1 year's data. The data that we would appreciate that we follow, or the class, is the kindergarten class, as we know that not all of our schools have fully implemented all of our resources with fidelity to the point of implementation that we could say they totally have a grasp of the complexity of what is in the materials and the teachings within those resources. So it's that kindergarten class. We're not ignoring the rest, but it is that kindergarten class that we are going to be measuring against. Is what we're doing working? If not, what more do we need to add to it? You bet.
All have gone through the training, if I heard that right, but you're using kindergarten now. Have all kindergarten teachers gone through literacy training, if you're going to use that as your...
Thank you. All of the teachers under the direction of their literacy coach have gone through giving these assessments. and where those assessments or students, where in the framework are we measuring the learning that measures that represents those measurements.
I'm sorry, perhaps I misunderstood you. I thought some staff have gone through all of this yet.
There, we do it, you are correct, and I would thank you for allowing me the opportunity to clarify. We have some schools whose staff have, from the get-go, 4 years ago, implemented the writing units with fidelity, and then they have chosen to adopt the reading units, and so they have really a deep study of the reading units this year. So those two major components are in place. And then with the word study component that we've added this year, we do have additional resources to support. Words Are Way for 3-5, and then at the elementary we use Fontes Pinnell for their phonemic awareness components.
May I ask one more? Oh, I'm sorry, will you finish that point?
The next point would be is that not every schools this year, because of the complexity of literacy, had chosen whether they are going to adopt the reading, the writing, or go more deeply, basically with the reading and writing to go more deeply with. Some schools decided to stay with the writing. Some of our schools did not have a literacy coach this year, and it was shall I say, it would be a more comprehensive approach to leading professional development in a resource that they've had for a couple of years. They will be adopting the reading units this year and going much more deeply with those. And that's what I meant by saying not all of our teachers have had the depth of training or experience in using the newly adopted resources.
I hope you don't mind a couple more questions. You used the word choice a couple times in here. Is it a choice to say which one I'm going to do first? Because I assume it isn't a choice on whether or not you're going to be doing this in the end. And also with that question, then when do you anticipate this being implemented across the board?
Yes, it's first question first. We use choice because when we rolled out our units of study, we wanted the school the autonomy. What is the resources that they must use? Which they adopt to go more deeply in needs to be tailored to what the school's ready to learn. We could traditionally roll out an adoption and tell everyone that you will be using the reading units this year, whether you're ready for them or not. And there's no research that supports you're going to get your buy-in from your teachers or be able to meet your teachers' needs of where they're at. So we have asked leadership teams under the direction of their principal and their school teams to choose which area of the literacy components they are going to focus on for the next 3 years. It is K-5, and when it's completed, there will be all 3 areas will be consistent across the district. The piece that's going to help us would be the resources that we have adopted, provide us the scope and sequence and the rigor that we have been missing.
Thank you.
The next piece is, I just wanted to show you that in where Green Bay Area School District lands in 3rd grade is compared to our state test on our statewide assessments. And over the years, for our 3rd grade, and that 3rd grade would be indicative of the work we've done in pre-K, K1-2, would show us that we're holding and closing that average gap. We're closer to the state average in literacy. Even forward was a much more complex exam than the others, and relatively well. The children did relatively well closing that gap towards our district average being aligned with the state average in 3rd grade literacy. And as you know, that will be one of our measures. I'm sorry. 4th grade. The piece being here, we're about 8.6% below what would be the state average for proficiency. And we continue to look then, how solid did we have those skills in K1, 2, 3, as we start really using those skills and applying to more complex text. Any questions on that data? I'm sorry. And then 5th grade, from last year's gains, and it's very difficult to compare the state data. Don't mean to be vague about it, but they're really, you're looking at 3 different assessments, and you're looking at 4 different groups of children that have taken this assessment at this grade. This is often used in the curriculum world as just a helicopter view of how close are we to average, but then we start peeling it back to look at what components are, we used to call it the phase 3, that we look at our data, specific standards, specific strategies and skills that students don't have in place. You start seeing a pattern of those throughout the district if they're very prevalent. Then you need to dig in and look at your resources, your professional learning to make sure that you're meeting what we're not addressing or the students are not grasping to be successful on the state assessment with. Another piece of data that we have used over time but inconsistently would be our STAR data. In 2015, in my work with Stephen, just most recently as today, just to verify, in 15-16, there were those that wanted to participate in taking STAR assessment did, so these are kind of skewed numbers. There might be 102 students overall in 1st grade that did very well on STAR at the 50th NCE, but yet in the 2016 we had 2,000 students take the test. And so what we have done for this year and moving forward, all students will be taking the STAR, and we've also added early literacy. So all students will be taking from pre-K, K, and all those students reading under what we call a level E will be taking the early literacy assessment. And then all of our other students will be taking STAR 3 times a year, so we will begin having consistent data. But we would be able to use the spring 2017 data as comparable data as we move forward. I color-coded this so you could see the same group of children moving through time. Any questions on that body of data? The next piece that we'd like, that was our, shall I say, our general education universal level 1 overview. The next piece that we'd like to take a look at is when this isn't working for our children and they aren't learning and we aren't closing gaps, what is it that we do? And that is Tier 2 intervention. We have a very structured multi-level systems of support framework in which schools move their students through. And it begins with a learning support team or collaborative learning teams of teachers moving through learning support teams. And to date, we do have Tier 2 interventionists in all of our schools, at least a 0.5. Those that have Title I money secure additional resources in staffing for those schools. We have 28 total. Of those 28, we have 2 that are advocacy trained in reading recovery, but all others are trained in reading recovery, which is a solid foundation in reading foundations. Any questions to the number of faculty that we have serving our children? Very highly trained. We're going to, in a few slides, talk about the professional development that Jane and Liz provide for them. Right now, we have 4 primary Tier 2 interventions. One point that we're very proud of in our intervention system is that it's value added or aligns to what we're trying to accomplish and the gaps we're trying to close at our universal. So we have reading recovery, literacy, level literacy interventions, literacy footprints, and self-regulated strategy development for writing. Our reading recovery data, and we are in the middle of a review, inter-district program review. Between last year and this year, we provided our end-of-the-year data, and also I have the progress that students in reading recovery made first round and how they are sustaining that growth throughout the year in their classrooms. Our goal in reading recovery this year was that we had more students discontinuing, but the greater piece was that we had a greater or more accelerated rate of growth. And then the piece that Liz championed and we worked very hard on is making sure we had more students complete the program. We run out of weeks in a school year. It's usually, typically is 18 weeks, and we run out of weeks in a school year to get 2 full rounds of reading recovery in, which skews the data because students never complete that intervention. Did you want to add anything to that piece?
About the completion of the programs?
Just.
Sure. Yeah, actually, the last 2 years, prior to this year, we had one student complete the first round of reading recovery, which is the first 12 to 20 weeks of the program, before 20 weeks. So there was one student that completed before the 20 weeks in the last 2 years. This year, 16 students were able to complete the program before the 20-week time period, which allowed for more students to have a longer second program of reading recovery, which is, I think, part of the reason that our data was able to accelerate a bit more, is that students were able to have a full second round of reading recovery in a lot of instances.
We have a few new board members.
Sure.
And also just for everybody, the word discontinued in reading recovery is not intuitive. So if you could just explain what that means.
It is very positive. That means that they no longer need to have any intervention for reading and writing. They have met either the grade level expectation or have exceeded that expectation. And I see Nancy's got a little cheat sheet there that I don't have that in my mind exactly right now, but the students that I did monitor their growth, and the students who discontinued first round, how many of them were exceeding the
16?
Yeah, so there were 23 children that discontinued, which meant they met, or at that point had exceeded the grade level expectation for first grade, and 16 of them are now exceeding the year-end expectations as well. 5 are meeting the year-end expectations, and 3 are just one level below the year-end expectations. So that's pretty exciting progress. And then the second round children, which is so you get 12 to 20 weeks for the first part of the year, and then we call them second rounders, they get the 12 to 20 weeks at the end of the year. And 31 children discontinued, which means they met or exceeded the grade level expectations, and 7 exceeded the grade level expectations, and 24 met the grade level expectations. So it's very exciting news. The amount of growth, maybe something that's not known about reading recovery is that we take the lowest 20% of children, the children that probably, if they didn't have reading recovery, would be picked up for special education. They might come in with a couple of letters, they maybe have some scribbles for writing, and can barely read a text. And they end up being, in the first round, if you discontinue, it means you have to read a text level 14, which is one level below the end of the year expectation for children. So they have exceeded the expectations, but they were the lowest 20%. So I think sometimes we get caught up in this whole discontinued and how many kids discontinue, but to think of the feat that truly is, that in 20 weeks, a half an hour a day intervention, which is really 1 week of an interventionist time, they are able to go from a struggling non-reader to someone who has exceeded the grade level expectations. That's phenomenal. So just throwing that out there.
And then our next piece is, as we know, as our children leave intervention and go back to our universal setting, is will they sustain that growth? And that is the piece that we are finding, that with the adoption of our resources and the reforming of some of our practices in our universal level, that they are truly supporting that student that is out for intervention coming back to the classroom for the remainder of the time, really supporting the strategies and skills that are being taught in isolation with the teacher back into the universal across the all content area. Okay. Anything else that you would like to know about reading recovery? It is a first grade intervention. Yes.
I'm looking at the literacy intervention data where it says 30% made 1 year's growth.
That's the next.
27%.
Yep, that's our next piece. Jane will address that.
I'm just trying to interpret that. If indeed these are the youngsters that you said the 20% lowest?
The ones that are referred to on that next page are
On the next page?
not
Okay.
reading recovery children. The current slide is reflective of the reading recovery children. That's the one that looks like this.
You're one slide ahead.
You're a
Yeah,
slide
you might have
ahead.
just skipped ahead a tiny bit.
Okay, but my point with this one, Anyway, if you don't mind humoring me to go back or look at this one. If they're behind, they only made a year's growth, then we still have a lot of work to do because they're not catching up to their grade level, right? So.
That is correct, and that the key, the essential piece to really closing gaps is strengthening your universal.
Okay.
And then ideally we should be able to meet the needs of 80% of our population in our universal instruction, and that's where the rubber hits the road, but that's also very difficult and complex work. When that doesn't work, it's critically important that your intervention system aligns to what the teacher's trying to teach for in the universal and supporting the student in their learning. So the data that we just looked at would be just one of our interventions at Tier 2 that is specifically for our first grade students, the lowest 20% of our first grade students. And no, we are not a fully implemented literacy or our reading recovery district. We do not get anywhere near serving 20% of our lowest population. However, we do a very good job with what we have.
Yes, I'd like to ever probably more around the 5% coverage level. So if we could ever get to 20%, that could be a huge shift as well.
And I'd also like to mention quickly on the reading recovery, these are international benchmarks. Although we talk about our benchmarks that are aligned, these are aligned with students across the world.
And another piece on data, just if I could interject real quick, is that I did analyze the growth in students' text reading from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And as I was doing that work, I did an average of all the students in our program. And while they were in the first round of reading recovery, they made 2 times the growth that they did when they were back in the classroom. And then the second rounders made 2 times the growth than the kids who were in the classroom in the first part of the year. So it is definitely proving to be data-wise in an entire average of children, proving to be a very effective intervention in the progress for children.
Thank you. So the next piece, and I'll move along more quickly. The next piece is our other components of literacy intervention data. So we do have, in just Tier 2, we served 341 students were served. And of those 341 students, 27% made more than 1 year's growth. 30 made 1 year's growth, and 43 made less than a year's growth. And I'm going to just let Jane quickly address what that data means and the collection of that data.
So to your point, accelerated growth is what kids in intervention need to have. So we're thrilled with 27%. The 30%, what we look at there is sometimes it takes more than a year to close that gap because a child can only consolidate so much learning in 30 minutes every day. As Nancy said, the universal, they're in universal for an hour and a half to 2 hours of literacy instruction every day. Doesn't mean that we only give them 1 year and say, sorry, that's all we have. So when we write these plans for these kids at the exit of the year, our interventionists look at the growth made. Did the intervention prove itself to be effective, or do we need to turn to another intervention? So we really look at our year-end data, and we did that at our June data retreat, to say which kids, the day the doors open, are back on our list, and what is it that, based on our data, they need, and what are we going to give them to try to get more of that accelerated growth.
And all of our measures are both the curriculum data that we use and the ongoing progress monitoring data, but also we use the benchmark assessment data of DRA to ensure that we are accurate in knowing where our students are at. So we use multiple pieces of data.
If I could just ask a quick question, does it take a full school year to determine the effectiveness of the intervention? Can it be identified?
Much earlier, yes, yes. I mean, we tend to want to give it at least 12 weeks, provided that the child was there every day. The intervention was provided for the full 30 minutes, the fidelity piece. But yes, we don't go on for a whole year. It's just that when you're really watching data carefully and writing plans for the kids, the individual plans with their classroom teacher, interventionist, coach, we principal most times. Some kids it takes slow and steady so we stay the course, because if we just keep changing it up every 12 weeks, we've only started to get that learner to be more tangled. The critical piece is that collaboration time, so that our interventionist knows how the teacher attacks it in the literacy block every day. So we're using the same language, because those kids are already so tangled. So we're working really hard at that collaboration and writing those plans. So after, we monitor them every 6 weeks. So we know well before the end. But if we're making progress, we're not quick to jump ship, because accelerated progress, it's what we all want, but a week for kids that are really struggling is good growth.
And we do monitor those students weekly, and everything's entered in the RTI tab on NIC.
Right.
So, and all of our practitioners predict the growth that a student would make within the year, or within the week, based on the data that they have. So they're constantly monitoring that growth, and you are correct. There are pieces, if the child nothing is happening, they do change up the intervention. But they definitely use their data to make those decisions.
And to your point, on the IC system, Infinite Campus, weekly they have to put the focus and the progress monitoring for each child. And that allows Jane and I to go in for coaching, thinking, to partner with the teacher, and it also allows teachers to really pinpoint that focus on a weekly basis, to really be thinking about what that child needs. And I think that that's been a big part of some of our successes this year. Intentionality.
And then teaching for processing. Yes. And then our Tier 3 interventions. If Tier 2 doesn't work for a student, then the students would, the teacher and the interventionist would take the student back to a learning support team and then review all of the additional data that they have gathered, and then they would make a decision as to exactly where that skill specific that child needs additional support, and then be matched with a Tier 3. Last year we had no Tier 3 interventions. We had one intervention that we're using across the board. I'm very pleased to say the work that Jane and her team has done is we really do have a nice balance of skill-specific interventions that students, that we can reference and use to help students at where their deficits are and needs are. And to date, there were 72 students that did receive Tier 3 intervention this year. Really quick, our professional learning for interventionists, 20 hours of professional learning. As we're aware, our reading recovery teachers in training participate 30 hours of assessment training and 105 hours in theory practice and behind the glass. The reading recovery teacher training are in ongoing professional learning, which requires 16 hours of theory practice and behind the glass and 3 hours of data analysis. So it's continuing. It continues. Professional learning is never done. As we look forward to elementary, our challenges continue to be the heavy work in closing the achievement gaps and the real importance of having that collaboration time in order to teach literacy to all children at a personalized level. That it is critically important teachers have that time to work with each other. And also funding for summer professional learning. We'd like to offer an additional literacy academy for our principals, and also continue ongoing professional development for those that lead literacy in our district. Our opportunities that lie in front of us are our universal literacy framework. We're very excited about that framework, the embedded professional learning model that we have in place, the fact that every coach is in a classroom, it's consistent instructional practices that we're working for and toward, the use of a strategic formative assessment system, and of course the framework for learning and multi-level systems of support. Does anyone have any questions on the elementary literacy update?
So go ahead. Is there a question? I just want to say we appreciate the extra time that we're taking this. When we've talked about behavior being our first and primary focus, literacy is really our second. Laying the groundwork for this as a progress monitoring piece will assist as we go on, just like we're checking with behavior on a regular basis, and we'll have regular check-ins related to that and our progress. We'll be doing the same with literacy and math, so that on an annual basis you will be able to see how are we doing. So this is laying the groundwork for future conversations.
So moving onward up into the secondary level, I'd like to echo what Nancy offered, that we really appreciate the work of not only Liz at the earliest levels, but also Linda Teskey, who can't be here tonight, Jane Delcor, who has been supporting intervention leadership throughout the district. And I believe we have a number of literacy folks here in the audience tonight, or we did for a while.
Yes, we did.
There we go. But we have some folks who they've been very crucial in helping us be able to bring forward the data that has been shared this evening and continue to do incredible work in conjunction with us. We're proud to work with them, and it's been very exciting. As we talked in the area of mathematics, we have a scope and sequence of programming in the general education side. We've got the visual that mirrors to a great extent what we share with you for mathematics. A couple key changes you may notice is that at the high school level, we require 4 full credits of language arts credit, so shifting out of literacy into a content area called English Language Arts. There's 4 credits of high school English required. And also on the far right-hand side of the screen, you can see the high school elective courses available for that 12th grade year where you were gracious enough over the last couple of years to approve a lot of dual credit offerings that we're proud to offer. In reviewing the data on the summary of enrollments and course completions, our advanced placement, international baccalaureate, and advanced enrollments are holding steady or increasing across the board, which is quite promising. As summarized on the elementary side, we also have professional learning history that we would want to summarize for you. We've been transitioning over the past 7 years in our district to new academic standards in English Language Arts at the secondary level. We've been developing course and content essential documents to support the incorporation of those standards, and that has required professional learning annually and consistently, both job embedded as well as some standalone opportunities with very impressive consultants as well as our in-house expertise. We've had the pleasure and opportunity to work with representatives from the Teachers College in the area of writing. We've had the opportunity to combine as cohorts of colleagues in the area of interventionists in middle and high school, as well as our literacy coaches, and working with principals around instructional and literacy leadership and literacy leadership teams. Next steps, as we see it, just like we said with math, not a lot of new stuff, frankly. We need to simply work the work, dig in, and remain committed to collaboration, to the collaborative learning team approach, to leveraging the in-house expertise of our literacy coaches at the middle school level, our language arts department chairs as well at the middle and high school level. I think there's a big misunderstanding about literacy sometimes, that in the early years you are learning to read, and then once you learn to read, you can simply read to learn. And I think that anybody who's tried to read and interpret, whether it be school board policy, state laws, or the instructions that came with the furniture that I bought this summer, we are always learning to read. And rather, what strategies can you apply as you learn to read more and more complex texts that are appropriate for the circumstance? At the secondary level, that means that we need to apply literacy strategies not just in language arts classrooms, but across all content areas, and frankly, as lifelong learners. In the area of curriculum, I would like to summarize that, just like I mentioned earlier, we've been transitioning to new standards. The board has approved over the past 7 years not only the transition to these new standards, but the transition to new content and course essential documents. We've shifted from partial release instructional coaches at the high school level. We had that for a while as during that transitional period. And we also have had full-time literacy coaches at the middle school level at Edison, Franklin, Lombardi, and Washington in the years 2010 to 2014. That was all part of our initial, I would say, Common Core transition. From 2014 to the present, we've really emphasized solidifying that system, making sure that our literacy coach framework and support runs K-8, and making sure that we have articulation of dual credit courses at the high school level. We continue to emphasize, and this is very, very important, we continue to emphasize differentiated small group instruction at middle and high school so that a wider and wider range of learners can access universal instruction in grade level courses. This is important because when we start looking at intervention in our district at the secondary level, we need to talk about students having access to the universal setting, and then students that need additional support receive that additional support. Prior to 2015, at our middle and high school levels, there were students that were often not given access to language arts courses. They were instead given replacement courses, and there was a curriculum utilized. In some high schools, it was utilized. Some high schools did not have it. Some middle schools ran it as a period and a half. In general, it was a 2-period block where Reba 180 was taught instead of language arts. We began the transition in 15-16 to ensure that all students would have access to a universal grade level course, and then, if needed, additional supplemental instruction. East High School has also led the way in some respects by leveraging, they had a SOAR grant and leveraging some of their resources to identify how can they go even beyond pull-out intervention services and look more at universal design for learning approaches so that more and more students could access not just the universal instruction, but also talking about how do they push in their services and not have as many standalone courses. In 15-16, we also spent a lot of time identifying potential Tier 3 intervention tools for students that were multiple years behind grade level.
Right, before you go on,
Yes, sir.
I do want to challenge something you said there regarding Read 180.
Yes.
To suggest that students were not given access to language arts, I think is an inaccurate statement.
Okay.
I don't think that's accurate at all.
How, in your understanding, what should I have rephrased that, please?
Well, I don't think that should have been stated that way at all. It was a replacement course. It wasn't the same as the language arts course, but it did have language arts elements to it, so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I apologize that, I think what you said is what I meant to say.
Okay.
A replacement course, and taught by language arts instructors, in many cases, yes. Our current status for intervention, you approved last year supplemental literacy at the middle school and literacy extension at the high school. Those courses are activated. They are staffed by trained and certified instructors. In the intervention we've been using in that environment is level literacy intervention. At middle school, we have 9 literacy interventionists, or serving in at least part of their schedule would be 9 different folks would be serving in that capacity. At the high school level, we have 7 folks that have been trained to serve at that capacity. The purpose would be to provide Tier 2 intervention, again, in addition to the universal setting. There is on-site support and intervention collaboration among the folks at those levels, and we've been spending a lot of time providing some of that on-site support. Jane has traveled to those schools frequently throughout the last school year, has also worked with schools during various visits to analyze data, talk about the collection of data. Overall, Jane, we estimate, or not estimate, we're pretty sure 393 students received this service at middle school and about 140 at high school, correct?
That's correct.
Looking at the data, unfortunately, it's very similar in some respects to the mathematics data that we showed. We are not seeing the type of growth and gap closing that we would expect to see, that we need to see. We need to keep staying committed to focusing our efforts on, whether it be the WKC proficiency data, the percentages of students passing, earning credit in 9th grade in language arts. We remain, while we do have a very strong advanced language arts program, as well as a strong advanced placement and international baccalaureate program, we would like to see those numbers increase. We are holding steady, and we are seeing increases as a result, partly of our increased access to AP Human Geography. You had asked me last time around what our numbers look like, and our numbers are increasing across the board at AP course access. And also, one final positive note is that by transitioning so many of our senior electives to being dual credit opportunities, we've had a large number of students this past year that just finished up earning dual credit, or earning credits both at the high school level and in for NWTC, the CEP courses. You can see that in career communication, 197 students took classes, 332 students took English composition, 197 oral interpersonal communication. So very strong enrollment there that we look to continue growing as well. We finish up then with 3-year trends in our STAR data in the areas of reading in 6-8 as well as 9-11. And again, we'd like to continue working on improvements there. In summary, the challenges we face at secondary, the opportunities we have at secondary are similar to those that we see at elementary. There are some variances. We continue to have gaps in access and achievement, including multi-year gaps that present at secondary. Challenges in terms of ensuring that disciplinary literacy is widespread and universally understood across all content areas. Being concerned about staff turnover in high-skilled positions. These are very challenging positions to be a literacy interventionist or a math interventionist or a literacy coach. Ensuring that through the master scheduling process that we have common planning and collaboration time. The middle school schedule is sometimes a challenge, like we talked about with mathematics, not having enough time to work with our students who may be struggling, or frankly giving students the opportunity to read and write of sufficient depth across their day. And also continue to improve how we leverage the Infinite Campus system for our data. Opportunities, continue looking at how we can develop additional acceleration opportunities for our students. Students who show a real aptitude and interest in English language arts, how far can they go? Looking at improving those. Really solidifying our CLT, our collaborative learning team efforts around unit design, around common assessments and common grading practices. Making sure that we keep equity, excellence, and engagement at the forefront of our work, and ensuring that our turbocharge initiative with UWGB and NWTC is a way to leverage our understanding of literacy improvement heading into post-secondary. And with that, I will conclude my remarks and ask again if there are any questions or comments about secondary or pre-K-12.
With the challenges, and I don't know if you can speak to it or John or anyone on that, the staff turnover in high school positions, would you expand on that, please?
Yes, when we take a look at the training required to deliver literacy interventions and finding staff with 316 licensure at the secondary level, when I look at the work that Jane and Linda Teskey have done in middle and high school over the past 2 years, I believe that we've done had to do a lot of training because we are in recruit and hire and then train mode, and when people are scaling up that, it's tough to institutionalize it for multi-years. And so I do have concerns about keeping folks in those high skill positions and not having turnover.
So are we losing people in those positions? I mean, the turnover, it suggests to me it's not on the front end. The issue is that we've got the people, but we're losing them?
I would say that in the area of literacy intervention, mathematics intervention, and literacy coaching at middle and high school, we've either had people retire or have taken other opportunities either in the district or in other districts at a rate that has made it more challenging from my perspective to really lock down a solid, consistent, this is our literacy leadership approach at middle and high school.
Aside from retirements, are they saying why they're leaving us? I mean, we've provided all that training and,
I don't have that information. Okay. That would be something that we could explore further about the why.
Okay. The other question I have is where are we right now with the issue of doing an audit, a literacy audit? Where does that stand?
We are going into the RFP process, and we're going to be looking at different organizations to conduct the audit, and the audit will take place this fall.
Okay. Where are we with that RFP process then? I mean, is that gone out?
With the transition of our CFO and the new hiring, we're in process at this point, but it will be going out shortly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just want to say thanks again to the team for all their great work. And again, student safety is our first priority, but literacy is a close second. Then financial.
Right, we have no legal update today. Did you want to?
Yeah, if I could move to reorder the agenda, Andrea, for human resources, action items.
You want all first?
Yeah, all two of them. That would be good. Just in deference to people waiting.
Second that.
Thank you.
Sandy?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Wagner?
Carried 6-0.
So we're doing just the HR?
Just 2A and B, I think, yeah. Or no. 2A1 and 2.
There are two.
Yes.
You want my paper, Andrew?
Yeah. I move that the employment of Michelle Jacobson as principal 12 months at West High School, contingent upon pre-employment requirements as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy? Aye. Whitener?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
York?
Aye.
Carried 6-0, and I understand Michelle's.
Michelle is right
Oh,
there.
there she is. Welcome.
We're excited to have Michelle. She served very recently as an administrator for quite a few years at an IB school in China. And she's also had very diverse experiences in the Los Angeles School District, so it's a great blend of IB experience and working with diverse student populations. So we're pleased to have Michelle.
I move that the transfer of Molly O'Neill, coordinator of charter schools, 12 months, at a salary of $87,019 as to interim associate principal as presented, be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
York?
Aye.
Whitener?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Carried 6-0, and Molly is also in the. And I know Dennis is happy to have you on his team, so I see Dennis back there too, yes. All right, then we will go back to our agenda, which, let's see, takes us back to Intercity Student Council report. I'll turn that over to Grace.
Okay, so we have a lot of great things going on in all of our schools, even during the summer when it may not be as much, but we're still doing a lot. So just district-wide overall, the second session of summer school has just started. And on July 1st, it began that all students are able to ride the city bus for free with their ID. And we had discussed that before, and that's just really awesome. And it got officially started on July 1st. And we had many students from the district, including myself, and which is why I wasn't here on the June to report to you, but we had many students attend Badger State, both boys and girls, from the district, which is really awesome. And on to our individual schools. For Preble, Max Bobholtz, who is a senior at Preble High School, he was recently in the news for his Angels at Bat charity. And so if you don't know about that, it's a charity that he started that helps kids in Africa. He brings them baseball equipment, and he has also started to bring soccer equipment to them. He's actually in Africa right now. He gets back tomorrow. And he was recognized in the news for that because they found out about that, and it's just really amazing what he's doing at such a young age, and he plans to keep this going lifelong. They've opened 4 other branches in 4 other states that are now collecting supplies as well and bringing them to Africa, and Africa is actually looking to participate in the Olympics now in baseball just because of what Max has been able to do. So I think that's really awesome.
That's great.
Excuse me, out of curiosity, perhaps you don't know, is there a specific country in Africa?
He goes to Kenya every year, yes.
Kenya.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the girls' basketball team for Preble, they got a new coach, James Dowell. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Workouts are also being done for the fall sports so that they can get in shape and get ready. And our football season starts quite early this year. It starts on August 17th, and we'll start out playing. That's super exciting. And then moving on to East. So an East graduate actually helped to paint the Howe School mural, which I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's really cool. It looks really good. And also the East City Stadium field is being redone and will be done for this upcoming football season, I believe, for the turf field. And for West, the Jimmy Awards in New York helped celebrate the musical accomplishments of Liz Valentine. And also, Baylink Manufacturing is still employing students from West for over the summer, which I think is really cool. Southwest, the Troyettes, which is their dance team, are hard at work to practice for their upcoming season, as well as the other Southwest athletes who are working out in the weight room constantly to ensure a good fall season. Their leadership council went to COPS to help at the Bobbers event for their football team. And the Jimmy Awards in New York also celebrated Felix Torres in his musical accomplishments. And I couldn't find any news for John Dewey, so that's all I have.
We just let Molly go.
We just let her go.
So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Grace. And next we have our legislative liaison report, and I'll turn that over to Laura.
Okay. So the first item is the state budget update. There's a lot going on, too much really to cover here, so I'm going to just cover some of it. Julie Jansch and we went to the WASB Summer Leadership Institute this weekend, which was very interesting. And a couple things stuck out for me, and they gave us a really lengthy legislative update at the end of the event. But a couple things. First, with regards to the budget, the Senate and Assembly GOP are largely in agreement on K-12. And the current impasse is due entirely to their inability to find agreement on transportation funding. So until they can agree on how roads are funded, the rest of the budget is held hostage, basically, so to speak. Attached to your materials is a letter from Dr. Langenfeld and Dr. Warren. I was going to try to summarize this, but it covers quite a lot. It's not terribly lengthy. If you'll just bear with me while I read it into the record for anyone who might be watching. Dear members of the Joint Finance Committee, on behalf of the Green Bay Area Public School District, we urge you to consider the following as you debate the state biennial budget. Statewide voucher program. Prior to making any changes to the statewide voucher program, the district contends that any revisions should be presented to the voters of Wisconsin. No different than when a public school district is required to ask its local taxpayers for additional revenue to fund their public schools. At a minimum, any proposed significant increase to the eligibility level for the statewide voucher program deserves an opportunity to be vetted and reviewed by the voters in a public forum, not behind closed doors of a budget negotiation. Currently, the median household income in Brown County is $54,802. If the purpose of the statewide voucher program is to provide opportunities to families with insufficient means to choose alternative educational options besides a public school, then we believe that the current 185% above poverty level provides sufficient opportunities for Brown County families to participate in the program. In addition, any changes such as lifting the cap for statewide voucher program or shifting to a statewide cap should also have a public vetting. As currently funded, the statewide voucher program has a direct impact on property taxes, and any significant changes to eligibility would have a direct impact on our school district's property taxpayers without their input. The referendum legislation. We are opposed to any effort to include the referendum bills, in quotes, in the state biennial budget. The effort to remove local control from elected school boards and silence voters' voice by reducing successfully passed operational referendums to more than 5 years is an action that should be visible so that voters can hold legislators accountable for their vote. Open enrollment. We are also opposed to the GOP Assembly's proposal to increase the amount of revenue that follows students that open enroll out of their resident school districts. When reviewing the Legislative Fiscal Bureau report, we noted that more than half of the school districts would be negatively impacted, thus creating winners and losers. Since it has not had a hearing or an opportunity for public comment, we believe that this change to open enrollment should be addressed by the Blue Ribbon Task Force that was created to address equity in the current funding formula. Within Brown County, many families have taken advantage of the choice opportunities available for a variety of reasons. In the past, the legislature has always held that in offering choice to families, resident school districts should be held harmless, with the recognition that when a student choices to another district, the resident school district's costs don't necessarily reduce by the amount of the per pupil student revenue. For the Green Bay Area Public School District, this change in funding level would result in a loss of revenue of more than $2 million, significantly impacting the students who are served in our school district. In addition, all school districts voluntarily accept open enrolled students and do so fully aware of the current funding allowed under law. Finally, K-12 public education funding. Finally, we ask you to support the governor's proposal for an increase of $200/204 for K-12 public education funding. As residents of the Green Bay area, taxpayers, registered voters, and the elected officials and leaders responsible for the education of almost 21,000 students in the Green Bay area public schools, we ask that your priority remain the funding of public education, where resources are needed to educate all students to be college, career, and community ready. We appreciate your attention to these very important considerations. Each has a significant impact on the future of the students and families across the state of Wisconsin. Thank you also for your service. And again, that was signed by Michelle and Brenda. And it went to Senators Lissay, Coles, and Hansen, and Representatives Genrich, Kitchens, Mako, and Stephens. Number 2, federal budget update. I was going to have Claudia speak to that, but she's on vacation. So just to sum it up, basically, Green Bay Area Public School District currently receives approximately $3 million in Medicaid funds for services to special education students. If this were eliminated, it would negatively impact all of our 21,000 students by reductions to staff, increased class size, etc. Andy, I believe, is going to speak to sum up the general aid estimates. Anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so, the district's approach has been fairly conservative this spring. So as we've been making revenue as well as expenditure estimates, we've taken a conservative approach. Certainly what Ms. McCoy just shared with you, some of those pieces that were in the letter could be financially difficult, very, very financially difficult, which is why I think it was a very well-written letter indicating the position that our district should be taking. So that being said, though, we did receive some good news. And if you remember, just a really simple formula, revenue limits, which under the current proposal by Governor Walker, revenue limits would not be changing because the money that's been discussed is a categorical aid, but revenue limits equal property taxes plus state aid. So the state aid estimate, which the Department of Public Instruction is required by state statute to provide by July 1st or June 30th each and every year, so it did have us increasing by approximately $6 million. We did need a small increase to be able to maintain a flat tax rate, but this estimate did exceed that amount that we projected earlier, again, conservatively estimated. So it would be, depending on property values that come in, and we won't know that until about October 15th, but depending on the number of students, the property values, there's still some variables. That is still good news. That would be advantageous to the district to be able to utilize those funds potentially in a different way either through defeasance like we've done the last couple of years, if part of the state's budget still allows energy efficiency exemption, which it's my understanding it will, might be dialed back a little bit, but still in alignment with a lot of the other projects that we've been completing, that we take advantage of something like that, still to maintain that flat taxation rate. So I think we're still positioned fairly well unless there is something extreme that happens with open enrollment or vouchers or some things like that that can be a little bit difficult to handle.
One quick question about open enrollment. Did they talk about that Saturday at the conference?
Yes, they did. I have their notes here. It would take me a moment to find it, I'm afraid. They gave us a very lengthy and very complex update and covered many, many subjects that are affecting schools right now in Wisconsin.
Keep an eye
Yeah.
on that. That was one of them that was fairly costly.
Yeah.
I'd like to steal the microphone just for a minute if I could, but thank you so much to the board. I appreciate the comments earlier by Dr. Langenfeld, but it's been a very quick 2 years. It was shorter than anticipated, but I hope that we've accomplished a lot. I hope that we're leaving the district in better condition than in shape and educational and whatnot, but thank you very much because it goes from the top down all the way through, but thank you very much though.
Thank you. Good luck, Andy.
Thank you.
Fourth item, there's I think you saw the attached letter to Senators Lassay, Coles, Hansen from Drs. Warren and Langenfeld regarding SB 169, which has to do with eliminating the prohibition against going armed with a concealed weapon without regard to licensure status. In particular, the bill would eliminate the prohibition on carrying a firearm on school grounds and for persons without a license to carry a concealed weapon in a school zone. Schools could post their buildings and grounds under the trespassing laws, so there's that option. And this letter that is attached speaks against the bill. And then finally, Assembly Bill 427 would require the state superintendent to develop a curriculum for comprehensive firearm education to be offered as an elective in to high school pupils. It would be developed with the DNR, a law enforcement agency, or an organization that specializes in firearms safety or that certifies firearm instructors. The bill does not require a school district to offer the course. The general feeling among state superintendents is that schools already have challenges with finding time to teach already existing curriculum, and that this is an item better done outside the boundaries of schools. The status on Senate Bill 169 is it has had a public hearing, and Assembly Bill 247 is in State Affairs Committee. That's as of 247.
427.
Oh, sorry.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes. Ugh.
One is the firearms on grounds, and the other one is the safety.
The curriculum
All right.
required.
So sorry, say that again then?
169 was kind of dead in the water.
So
Yes.
the WASB came out with theirs, and we were asked to support that, and since we'd already supported it in the past, we came forward again with pretty much the same. Lori, is that accurate, or have that accurate? The firearms on property, we had that same conversation a couple of years ago, and we just reiterated the same thing.
This one was changed a little bit different,
But it was kind of the same.
just told them we felt the same way.
Yeah, I think that the pieces, we work so hard with kids to report, and I think it could be very confusing or problematic or concerning, or, I mean,
That concludes the report.
All right, thank you, Laura. I'm thinking maybe we'll take a break. We'll come back at 5 after 8 on that clock back there. Next on our agenda is district events. If there's anything anyone would like to announce. Seeing none, we'll move on to our system reports. First is teaching and learning, and that'll be facilitated by Katie Maloney.
Thank you, Brenda. We have several action items. The first one I leaned on this a little too hard. Let me go back. All right. I move that pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 120.12, paren 13, paren B, the list and description of the 2017-18 student academic standards in the areas of mathematics, science, reading and writing, geography and history as presented, and with said academic standards constituting the board-adopted standards that are required under Wisconsin Statute Section 118.30, paren 1G, paren A, be approved.
Second that.
And are you coming up, John? Because we didn't talk about this at our work session, correct?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Just to see if anyone has any questions. I know we got the details of all the standards that were referenced in our handout. This is standard practice. We did this last year.
do this
Anybody have any
annually.
questions? All right, Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker? McCoy? Aye. Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Thank you, John.
Well, does he stay?
I move that the Title VI Indian Education Parent Advisory Committee bylaws as presented be approved.
Second.
We did talk about this
Yes, we
last
We
week.
did.
So I think
The
the rest of the
them
items
we've
we talked
discussed.
about at the work session.
Right.
Thank you, John. Sandy?
Wagner?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Becker?
Carried 6-0.
I move that the Advanced Placement Human Geography Resources as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy? Aye. Dorn?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the High School Business Education Resources as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Dorn?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Carried 6-0.
I move that City Stadium Automotive Early College Program Resources as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the Construction Pathway Resources as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the Music Theory and Advanced Placement Music Theory course resources as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy? Aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
That concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Katie. And next is our organizational support, and that'll be facilitated by Andy Becker.
All right. I move that the Boys and Girls Club of Green Bay be approved to provide services for Fund 80 and/or 21st Century Community Learning Centers, community-based after-school programs for Jefferson, Fort Howard, Dans, and Keller Elementary Schools.
Second.
Any questions? Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the YMCA of Green Bay be approved to provide services for the Fund 80 and/or 21st Century Community Learning Centers, community-based after-school programs for Howe, Doty, Eisenhower, Sullivan, Baird, Beaumont, and Tank Elementary Schools.
Second.
Sandy?
Warren?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy? Aye. Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorn?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the CISA 7 contract as presented be approved.
Second.
I have a quick question on that. I don't know who's, is that you,
Andy.
Andy? The CISA administration matching revenues, can you remind me what that is?
Yeah, so there's a CISA fee for participating, which is based on our size, and then it's also based on services. So there's a combination there between the two is how they determine that cost.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So we pay,
Some
a lot, smaller districts pay a lot more for services. We pay more because we have more students, probably.
They pay less.
Smaller districts pay, services typically cost the same.
Right.
We pay more towards administrative fee because we're larger.
Right.
But then based on services that are utilized, we don't utilize a lot of services. There are smaller districts that just don't have the ability to hire an OT, PT, speech and language, so they might utilize more services, but it would
Right.
be at the same cost that we would.
Right. I was referencing their total, might be
Yes,
close
there
to
you go.
ours.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah,
yes,
but ours is
exactly.
mostly because of our students and
Yes.
theirs mostly because of the services they use.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
thank you for explaining. Yep.
Any other questions? All right, Sandy?
Wagner?
Thanks, Sandy.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
I move that the Capel Brothers and Diedrich Construction be awarded the bid for general construction renovation at Edison in the amount of $52,560 as presented be approved.
Second.
Anyone have any questions? I think we had information in our board packet. Sandy?
McCoy?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Move that Elmstar Electric Corporation be awarded the bid for electrical renovation at Edison in the amount of $32,322 as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Move that Hartman Mechanical Industries be awarded the bid for mechanical renovation at Edison Middle School in the amount of $236,400 as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Move that Elmstar Electric be awarded the bid for controls installation work at Edison Middle School in the amount of $30,254 as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Move that Herkman Mechanical be awarded the bid for insulation work at Edison Middle School in the amount of $15,500 as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Carried 6-0.
Okay. Then we took the human resources motions early, and I move that the consent items as presented be approved.
Second.
Sandy?
McCoy?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Becker?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Carried 6-0. We do have a closed session. I'll read that motion. Closed session has been scheduled for Monday, July 17th at the Green Bay Area Public School District Office Building pursuant to Wisconsin statute, following the adjournment of the regular board meeting at the Green Bay Area Public Schools District Office Building pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data or involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters, and pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, to wit, potential litigation matters. The meeting will begin in open session to consider the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Becker?
Aye.
Dorf?
Aye.
Maloney?
Aye.
McCoy?
Aye.
Wagner?
Aye.
Warren?
Aye. Carried 6-0. We'll go across the hall.